Hello, this is Yaakov Kronenberg from Jerusalem, and tonight another class on a series of classes on Aquarius, ascendant, Saturn and the different signs. Tonight we'll be doing Saturn and Libra. Saturn and Libra is an interesting combination because Saturn is exalted in Libra. I always like to learn why it's exalted in Libra, is because Libra is a sign of justice. It's the balance, the scales of justice, and where the Saturn is a tremendously fearful type of person, is always worried about self-security. Right? There's two major impulses. My teacher always used to say there's two major impulses in the human being. There's the Saturn, which is to protect the self, that the self should live, and Mars to the reproduction of that the species should live, the reproduction. So the Martian is concerned with, reproducing, and the Saturn is concerned with his own personal security. And the way you have personal security is through justice, through a legal system. And so the Saturn feels really good when it has a good legal system, because he has recourse to his enemies and to the people who oppose him. And in any case, so Saturn is exalted in Libra. And so the person who has the ruling, let's say first of all, the Aquarius will be an air sign. Saturn in Libra is also an air sign. So it's a very intellectual type of combination for the most part, right? The two intellectual signs, air signs, communication is very, very important. They have a high desire to get to a high social standing. It's important to them to be recognized socially, to be socially acceptable. And when you have Saturn there in the 9th house, it's going to be an interest in philosophy, religion, travel, higher education. All those areas in life are going to take their part. The Aquarius is going to try to fulfill himself or herself through it. Tonight we're going to see a very famous woman who had this combination. And they're going to try to fulfill themselves through the 9th house. And so, what else can we say? So like we said, there's going to be a big interest in 9th house affairs, and you would think this is an excellent combination, really. If there's a problem with exaltation, I think I've said it before, the problem with exaltation is the person has a tendency to become unrealistic, has over expectations. They think they're more than they really are. That's one of the problems with the exaltation, is that they can be not grounded, and especially when you have two air signs, right? When you have the ascendant in air and the Saturn, the ruling planet, in air, the air is not grounded either. So there's a tendency to take flight, to be like, what do you call it? Bird brain, they call it. They used to call it bird brains and stuff like that. In other words, they're not practical. A lack of practicality could be a big problem with this combination, because there's so much air and there's exaltation there, and if so other things confirm it. I mean, if the rest of the chart has a lot of earth and things like that, the sun and the moon and earth, and that could ground it. But other times you can see stuff that is going to cause it to even get worse. And I'm going to show you a chart like that tonight. Chart that normally you would think this is a fairly nice combination. Aquarius with the Saturn exalted in the house of an excellent house, the house of religion, philosophy, higher education. Tonight I want to do the chart of a woman that even though she became very successful career-wise, I wouldn't wish her life on anybody. She had a very difficult life, from what I can read up about her and her background, and And so let's take a look at it. Very interesting chart, right? You see right away Aquarius rising as the Saturn there in the 9th house. But look, the Saturn is almost exactly conjunct Neptune. I've said this a lot of times. Saturn-Neptune is the aspect of the neurotic, right? Because Saturn is the fundamental principles that hold a person together, that he builds his life on, or she. And the moon dissolves everything. So there's always no real firm basis for the person. And here in her chart, since she has Saturn exalted, the moon Neptune is something like that it also, it's fantasy, dreams. And so it's really, it can be very, very devastating. And if that's not enough, if you look more closely, you see she has Uranus and Mars, almost exactly square, double approaching. We'll talk about that more later, in the 6th and 12th houses, and they're both square to this Saturn-Neptune. So she's got really all four malefics all working for each other. And Uranus, of course, makes her unusual and crazy, give her a craziness to her. By the way, this woman's name is Roseanne Barr. If I tell you a little about her background, she's never heard of her before, but she has a very famous background that she was very successful in as a comedian, as a television star, and things like that. But unfortunately, she had a really messed up life with mental illness and things. She had a car accident right when she was 18, and knocked her mind, gave her a brain trauma. She was 8 months in the hospital because of personality change. You see that. If you look at it's interesting. If you look at the ruler of the third, I want to talk about that a couple times. The third house is the house of travel, right? The house of travel falls in the 12th, right? Which is accidents and damage and things like that, hospitalization. And it's exactly opposite Uranus, which is accidents. Uranus, Mars aspects, tight aspects of oppositions and squares between Uranus and Mars are accident causing. It's one of the leading symbols for accidents, and so she has that there. And so you can see, you could probably predict it fairly easily that she would have accidents in her lifetime. Also, by the way, the third house is also the house of brothers and sisters. And she has one brother who's gay and another sister who's a lesbian. A really unusual background this girl came from. Right? And that's also indicated, again, by the ruler of the third in the 12th, opposite the Uranus, which is the symbol of people who are more or less have the sexual problems. I don't know whatever you call it, gender problems, and so that's there, and they're both squaring her Saturn Neptune conjunction. So when you have Mars and Uranus, the person goes like. It can be very, very wild person, and she must have been very wild when she was young. She came from she's actually Jewish, but the unusual, she lived in a Mormon city, Salt Lake City, Utah. She grew up, and she says 3 days of the week she was Jewish, and 4 days of the week she was Mormon. And from there it went. She had mental illness in her lifetime. She accused her parents of incest and all sorts of things. Then she retracted. She said she was mentally ill when she said that. She was going to psychiatrists who were giving her heavy medication. And you just see it in a chart in 2 minutes. This is a chart in 2 minutes. You just see all her problems. Right, the Mars Uranus opposition square the ruling planet Saturn, which is conjunct Neptune. Very, very difficult. And she also has, if you want, you can also add Pluto in there. Pluto is also in a sextile to both of them. So all the modern planets are attacking her Saturn, and it's just not a chart that I would like to have. With all the fame and wealth, I wouldn't touch it. Very, very difficult personality. She's been married at 17. She had a baby and gave it up for adoption. Then she got married, met some guy, married him, and then another guy, and she married him, and then another guy. She must have 3 or 4 married. I think 4 marriages after that. And she's just wild, the girl. It's the chart of someone who's not stable at all. A very, very wild type of person. You see, also, if you want to talk more, you can talk about, also she had a lot of plastic surgery, cosmetic surgery. Also that 6th house and 12th house, hospitalizations and illnesses, also making aspects to that Saturn. She wanted to beautify herself. She also had a weight reduction surgery, gastric bypass surgery. Just a wild person. A very interesting chart, though. Very, very interesting chart. And I thank everybody for listening.